Welcome to Wide Eye Sports, where every play, every moment, and every decision gets broken down like never before. The lights are on, the stakes are high, and it all starts right here, right now. We will now take you down to introduce the starters.
Brenner Mills, Minnesota Vikings. Just want to win one before I die.
Lane Cooner, the conductor of the Baker Train.
What is up, everybody? Welcome in to Free Agency for Dummies. We're going to talk about everything you need to know about the 2025 free agency in kind of a summary kind of way. We're not going to do anything crazy in depth. We're just going to kind of gloss over everything. We got lots of time coming up. Dole had to step away from the mic for a sec. Lots of time coming up to talk a lot more in depth about positional rankings, certain positions. We're just going to touch on a little bit of everything, but a whole lot of nothing in this video. You guys ready to get into this?
Yep.
All right. So let's talk offense first. Let's talk offensive free agency. I wouldn't exactly call this the strongest class of all time. I wouldn't call it the weakest class of all time. There are some names. We have a guy who I expect to be back in Houston most likely after getting injured last year, Stephon Diggs. I expect him to probably go back to Houston. I doubt he'll be making $22.5 million like he was, but I would expect him to go back there. Another couple really notable names that are kind of older on the wide receiver market. You got Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper, Chris Godwin, Deontay Johnson, Brandon Cooks, D-Hop, and those are the big ones that I see off the top of my head. But the big free agent guy who just got franchise tagged, or allegedly will get franchise tagged, and I don't know how this is going to work out, is T. Higgins. Obviously, they have made it very clear that they would like to keep T. Higgins in Cincinnati. They are already paying Joe Burrow a lot of money. They're already paying Jamar Chase a lot of money. That makes it really tough to pay another wide receiver a lot of money like T. Higgins is going to want. And he's going to want at least 24 to 25 a year, I would assume. He was making 21 on the franchise last year, or a one-year deal they had him on. I don't know if he was officially franchised last year, but what do you guys think? Pretty good offensive class, bad offensive class. What do you think?
It's just There's not really like a whole. There's only like maybe a handful of guys that I'm really interested in seeing where they go. Obviously, Sam Darnold's one of them. T. Higgins is one. I'm curious to see what happens with Chris Godwin. But like the best running back that you have that's available is like Najee Harris. Like I'm not really interested in that. Russell Wilson, I guess maybe Aaron Rodgers, maybe Stephon Diggs. After that, it's like And
Sam Darnold.
Yeah. No, I said Sam Darnold.
Yeah. Oh.
I mean, are y'all curious? Do y'all have any ideas of where you think he might go?
Las Vegas.
That's what I was
100% think he will end up in Las Vegas. He fits that Chip Kelly offense really nice. I don't think Chip will ask him to do too much. I think he ends up in Vegas. I mean,
there's only two other teams that I think he would maybe go to, and that's Tennessee and New York. But I don't know. They have the cap space to pay him. That's why I brought them up. But none of the other teams that really have the cap space.
Well, you got to think about what teams are going to be drafting a quarterback.
I mean, the Steelers.
Yeah, New York is up there to draft a quarterback.
Exactly.
Tennessee's up there to draft a quarterback.
Well, the Raiders are up there to draft a quarterback too.
Yeah, but there's only really two quarterbacks. I don't think they take a third.
Cam and Shadur.
I think. The Steelers like signing guys to 1 to 2 year deals. Russell Wilson is a free agent. What if Sam Darnold goes to a really good coach in Mike Tomlin and see what they can do?
The Steelers have been doing that for too long, man. They've been in quarterback roulette ever since Ben Roethlisberger left, and I think they need to nail down a starter and figure out who is going to lead their franchise forward.
Well, that's what they could be doing by signing Sam Darnold, right?
Yeah, they could sign Sam Darnold to a 3-year, $120 million deal, $40 million a year. That's basically what the
kind of the
franchise tag is. Yeah. But I would say most likely Vegas is where Darnold ends up. Aaron Rodgers to Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
maybe.
Tomlin has a really good history of bringing in those troubled diva-y guys and being like, hey, sit the fuck down, shut the fuck up. We're running it my way.
Antonio Brown. Look at George Pickens right now.
And so like he's got that aura about him of like, I'm the captain now.
Sun's getting real low, big guy.
I was going to bring up, too, you talked about Diggs, and you're like, oh, yeah, he's going to go back to Houston. You know Houston is negative in the cap right now, right?
Yeah, that's why I said I don't think it'll be at 22. They'll make some moves.
They might make some moves, but, man, like if they can't,
they're going to make some moves.
He's going to have to walk.
Yeah, they'll cut some people. Like, I can't remember. I was looking at it the other day.
What better team to get Diggs to be a wide receiver 2 on than the Washington Commanders, who have a bunch of cap space?
Oh God, could you imagine? Could you imagine?
Realistically, I think this is the year that the Patriots need to do something. They have so much cap space.
Oh yeah, much. They have $123 million in cap space.
They're like the only team that's over $100 million in cap space.
They're the only team. Oh, sorry, 121. They're the only team over $100 million, and then there's only one. The Vegas Raiders are the only team over $90 million, and then spots 3 through 10 are between 80 and 50.
Yeah.
So there's a 1 and 2, and then kind of everybody else in the top 10, and then it drops down into the 40s and 30s and 20s from there. There's not. Yeah, I definitely think Diggs could go to a team like Washington. I could see him going to a team like Arizona. I could see him going to a team like Detroit.
Yeah. Because he's getting up in age. He's over, I mean, he's what, 31, 32 years old now?
Yeah.
I think he would be a very good wide receiver 2 on most of these teams.
Yeah, a lot of these teams. He would be a great wide receiver 2 in Detroit. Though him and Amon-Ra are kind of the same style receiver, so I don't know if they would want to have 2 of the same thing. I don't think he comes back to Minnesota. I have another free agent, or guy who I think will be a free agent that I have for Minnesota. Arizona could be, Kyler, Marvin Harrison Jr., Trey McBride, James Conner. That's a good offense. He goes in there. He could be a really prolific wide receiver 2 there. Chicago's a good option if they want to surround Caleb Williams with a young guy. The Chargers, I don't know if he really fits their style of play. They have Ladd McConkey. He would be a great wide receiver 1B to Ladd McConkey. Washington is a big one, obviously. You said it. And then Vegas could pay him a ton of money. But New England and Vegas could both pay him a ton. But I think he likes what's going on in Houston, and I think he wants to be there, from what I've heard him say. So I think he would be willing to take a lot less money. They owe him $16 million anyways in a void year. So it's, they could re-sign him and then push that money, 2-3 year deal, and push some of that money down the road. He is older, so I don't know how much more they want to push it. He's already 31, almost 32, probably by this time next year. So you sign him to a 2, maybe a 3 year deal. You take his $16 million in void year, and then you give him a 2 year, $16 million deal. Give him 8 this year, 8 next year. That frees up, $8 million this year. That brings you back to even on this year's cap by re-signing him, and actually frees you up by $1 million. So lots of moves the Houston Texans can make. Lots of things they can do. They can restructure Laramie Tunsil potentially. Lots of ways to create cap room. But that's the free agency class this year. I should also mention is pretty deep at older guards and older centers, interior offensive line. You guys got, we got Zach Martin, we got Brandon Scherf, we got Ryan Kelly, we got James Daniels, we got.
If he doesn't go back to the Cowboys, I might just end it all, man.
The Cowboys and all negative $5 million.
They can restructure.
They could, but here's they're not.
They also have to pay Micah.
They got to pay. Yeah, they got Dallas. I'm gonna tell you right now, Dallas is not paying Micah Parsons. They are gonna trade Micah Parsons. 100%.
Probably.
100%.
You think this offseason it will happen? You don't think because they have to pay him or?
No, I think 100% they will trade him this offseason. And I got to look. So I would look out for a team. If you took like Micah Parsons and the number 12 pick another first-round pick, and like a third-round pick, you could probably trade up with the Patriots to get the number 4 overall pick. You give a defensive coach a defensive stud. They trade back the 10 picks. They pick up a pick next year, and then you get to move up and go get a star. I don't know who they would necessarily be going after, but I could see something like that. I just think there's no way you can keep him. Looking at Dallas's cap space right now, I mean,
we're negative already.
I mean, well, you're paying Dak Prescott 32% of the cap. Solo, just him.
Yep.
His
okay,
base
but I mean,
salary.
the Chiefs aren't really in a good spot either.
Well, no, but they're going to be fine for now. I think it's like the last 5 years of the deal with Mahomes is where they're really screwed.
Well, yeah,
but they still owe him $400 million over 7 years.
So I've talked about that with the Chiefs. They're in not a good spot either cap wise. They can't really push more of Pat's money down the road.
Yeah.
They've done that a couple of times already, and we've talked about that on the show. They can't really do that anymore, and so they got to start paying him. He's due $66 million. Think about that. He is due $66 million, and Dak Prescott is due to make over $20 million or more than that this year. That's crazy.
Yeah. No, it's insane.
So right now for Dallas, so looping back to Dallas, we have Dak Prescott at almost $90 million, 32%. You have CeeDee Lamb at $35 million, which is 12%. So just right there alone, you're at 44% of your cap. And then you have
2 players.
Micah Parsons at currently 8% of your cap, and he will want to go up. Now, what you could do with that is you could take his base salary and convert it to a signing bonus, which would remove it from the cap this year and give it straight in cash to him. So if they wanted to do, they wanted to re-sign Micah and he was willing to take that upfront payment and, push money back, they could realistically, technically keep him. But do you want to hinder yourself by having 3 dudes on your roster that are yearly going to take up 50% of your cap space for the next 4 or 5 years? And you have to draft perfectly, and you have to be able to survive.
Well, the Cowboys always draft really well anyway. Stop.
I mean,
please stop. Please don't act like they don't.
No, I'm not saying that.
They have in recent years.
No, I'm not saying they haven't at all. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that you have to draft perfectly. You can have no busts, and you have to be able to survive off the bottom feeders of free agency. You have to have guys that are, 8, 9, 10-year vets that are getting cut from other teams come in and play at their old level every year to even be competitive, much less win a Super Bowl. Because we talked about it in our ranking quarterbacks video. Dak Prescott is not an MVP level quarterback. So you're paying him 32% of your cap space. It's just, I didn't like it when it happened. I think he's a good quarterback, and I think he's worth money, but I do not think he's worth $90 million. I don't think anybody but Patrick Mahomes is worth $90 million, and that includes Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, because they have not proven that they can solo a playoff run into a Super Bowl, and Patrick Mahomes has. He's done it. He did it one time. He carried a team for 3 games all the way through the playoffs and won a Super Bowl. If you can do that, you can. He'd only done it once out of the 3 rings. The first one he had Kelsey and Hill. The second one he had the 16th overall defense, and Juju Smith-Schuster is his number 1 wide receiver. That was a solo job. And then the third one, obviously, he had an absolute stud defense in the playoffs, and they carried him. And then obviously they lost this year. So I'm not saying he's done it every time.
I don't think it's fair that you could ever say a quarterback soloed into the playoffs, man. It's so
obviously
much bigger than that.
He wasn't the only one playing well.
They may have had the 16th best defense, but that doesn't mean it's the 16th every game, every single time. That means that's the average of it. So sometimes they might have the 11th best defense in a game, or sometimes it was a really shit defense. You know what I'm saying? But
I mean, here's what they did in the playoffs. They gave up 20 to Jacksonville, 20 to Cincinnati, and 35 to the Eagles. So 20 in 2 games, which isn't, anything crazy, but they won. Pat Mahomes scored 27. The 23 against Cincinnati isn't as impressive. That was a more grinded out game. But then he goes out and puts up 38 in the Super Bowl with his number 1 receiver that year was Kelsey, obviously. And then he had Juju Smith-Schuster, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Jerick McKinnon was their RB2. Pacheco was their RB1. Clyde Edwards-Helaire had some time in throughout the season. So I'm not saying they're complete nobodies, but if everybody outside of that but Travis Kelce didn't have a Super Bowl, you'd be like, yeah, those guys are just okay. Like, he didn't really have a star-studded cast, is what I meant by that. If Josh Allen, he had about the same level of talent on that offense, a little bit more because of Kelce, prime Kelce, but that Josh Allen had this year on his offense. Now, he had a little more because of prime Kelce, but they're similar levels. But we're getting off the free agency topic. Apologize. We're getting into playoffs and Mahomes, Allen. I mean, tons of good stuff there. But yeah, you guys want to move on to defensive class? Yeah. Is that okay?
Sure.
All right, let me pull up the 2025 defensive class. All right, headliners here. You got Khalil Mack, Hassan Reddick, Carlton Davis, Matthew Judon, Tre'Davious Ward, DeMarcus Lawrence, Preston Smith, DJ Reed, Justin Reed, Josh Sweat, BJ Hill, Jonathan Jones, Byron Murphy Jr., Chase Young. I mean, tons of names. Jeff Okudah, but he was not panned out at all for Houston, unfortunately for him, but he's still young. Kendall Fuller, tons of good names out there that you could go out and get. Lots of outside linebacker, D-line, cornerback that can come in, step into a new team, and make a difference. And a lot of them are in that 26 to 30 range of getting that second contract and not necessarily over the hill yet. Spoon, one guy who is technically over the hill, but made the most money out of all these guys last year, Khalil Mack. Do you think he ends up back in LA? Back with Harbaugh?
I mean, yeah, I don't see why he wouldn't. They have plenty of cap space. Might as well just keep just keep him on there, I guess. He didn't play terrible.
Yeah, no. Who's a big name that's set to be a free agent that I don't know if we'll make it there, but he is set to be a free agent, and nobody quite understands this guy value, in my opinion, is Nick Bolton, the Chiefs middle linebacker. He has played the stalwart middle linebacker position on all these great Super Bowl defenses the Chiefs have had, or I shouldn't say all of the great ones, but a couple of the great defenses they've had. He is an absolute stud at linebacker, and he's like 26, 27 years old. I mean, I think that dude's going to get paid, and I think he is going to – I could see him going to like Bobby Wagner's getting old in Washington. I could see him going and stepping in and being a Bobby Wagner type middle linebacker for Dan Quinn in Washington. And I think that'd be a huge pickup for them.
Well, what's kind of setting me away right now is how many players on defense this Eagles team has that is entering free agency this year and how much cap space they have. Man, I don't think they're going to be able to re-sign all these guys. Like, we're talking not only – because I know you mentioned the name Josh Sweat.
Yeah.
Hassan Reddick, right?
Yep.
Hassan Reddick's with the Jets.
Yeah, Hassan Reddick was with the
That's
Jets.
not who I'm talking about.
So I got all their free agents.
You got Milton Williams, their defensive lineman, Josh Sweat, their edge, and then you also have their linebacker, Nick Bolton, who was a huge part of this Eagles defense.
Or you mean Zach Brown?
Zach Braun. Sorry, I'm saying the wrong names.
You're good. Lots of names here. Yeah, they have a lot of key pieces hitting free agency. Milton Williams had like 5 pressures in the Super Bowl. He tore up Kansas City in the Super Bowl. And now he got to play next to Jalen Carter. So
we're talking Josh Sweat too. Josh Sweat had a ton of pressures in the Super Bowl.
Brandon Graham was the dude who got the strip sack on Brady in their first Super Bowl win a few years back. I mean, these are impact players. Zach Braun was all pro.
Yeah.
Like, these are big names.
Yeah, these are like, whatever we're talking about, like the top defensive players that are free agents right now, these are like 3 guys that are in the top 10, top 15 best defenders that are available, and they're all for the Eagles. And I don't think the Eagles have enough cap space, so they're going to be going some places. And I'm interested to see where they go.
I could see Zach Braun re-signing there for sure. I think he'll re-sign.
You keep your All-Pro linebacker.
Yeah. I think they'll try to get Sweat back, but I don't know if they will. I could see them putting the transition tag on Milton Williams.
Probably.
That's, for those of you who don't know, the transition tag is the one where they take a player and they send him to unrestricted free agency, and then that player goes and negotiates a deal with a new team, and then Milton's camp brings that offer back to the Eagles. And if the Eagles say no, then that player is free to sign with that other team, but that other team has to give the Eagles their next 2 first-round picks. So it makes the price, 1, you have to pay the player, and then 2, you have to give up 2 first-round picks. So it makes it very unlikely teams will fork that up for a player, and it allows you to have more time to rework a deal with a player. It's what the Ravens did with Lamar Jackson a few years ago, and that's why everybody was like, well, everybody had a chance to sign him. Like, I don't know why nobody took the deal. Like, because he had to give up for 2 first-round picks and pay $60 million a year for a quarterback. Like, that's a lot. And do I think Lamar is worth it? Probably, honestly. If I had the opportunity to do that today, I'd do it. No question.
But is Milton Williams, is he worth it whenever you have a ton of top defensive guys coming into this draft? No.
I don't think he is, and they might not, but I could see him just being a candidate for it. I'm not saying they will do that. I just, you keep that D-line together after what they did in the Super Bowl.
Try your best to, at least.
Yeah. But yeah, tons of free agents there. Pittsburgh's got a whole list of free agents from Preston Smith to James Pierce to fucking Jeremiah Moon. They got tons of guys. There's just so many good free agents this year. It's not like the most like blue chip class, but there's lots of depth. I mean, Bobby Wagner doesn't necessarily want to hang him up yet. Cleveland Farrell for the Washington Commanders. He was that first round pick of Vegas a few years back out of Clemson, where he was like, what the heck? And he's had a productive, not like star-studded role, but a productive like role player role in Washington for that Dan Quinn defense. He's a free agent. And
Aaron Jones didn't have a terrible season with the Vikings.
Aaron Jones had 1,000 yards. The Vikings did just move his franchise tag date back, so they have more time to negotiate with him to the day right before free agency. So he and them are trying to work out a deal still. I think they'll probably get him back somewhere in the $5 to $7 million range, and then draft a rookie. Ty Chandler's our other running back. He has not panned out well. I don't think he'll end up sticking around. But
Dalton, our edge, DeMarcus Lawrence is also a free agent this year.
Yep.
Yeah, I know.
Unfortunately,
who else on our defense is a free agent?
I think
Dallas, Trayvon has maybe a year or.
Let me pull it up here. Dallas is free agent class. You guys got quite a few. DeMarcus Lawrence, Eric Kendricks, Jordan Lewis, Linval Joseph, CJ Goodwin, Nick Vigil, Carl Lawson. Just trying to pick out the big names. Tyrus Wheat, just to name a few. Carlos Watkins, D-end. The biggest one is obviously DeMarcus Lawrence. Anybody who's not a Dallas Cowboys fan or not a huge football fan won't recognize half those names.
Yeah, but still, Jordan Lewis, Odigizua, we got to re-sign. DeMarcus Lawrence, we got to re-sign. Those are all big names.
Somehow.
Lots of turnover this year. And for those of you who are curious, I'm pulling it up now. The projected cap max is $275 million. For those of you who are interested, $275 million that each team has to spend on their initial 90-man roster, and then they will end up having to cut it down to the 53-man roster by week 1. And let's see here. I want to look at teams' dead cap real quick. If you don't know what dead cap is, that's unavoidable money. That's money that's locked in that you cannot get out of at all. If a player is owed money and you cut them and they were guaranteed money, that money gets paid out that year or through various different avenues.
The Saints are just screwed, bro.
The Saints. So everybody remembers how the Saints were good from 2016 to 2021-ish, and every year they were just managing to keep all these Alvin Kamara, Drew Brees, Michael Thomas, all these stars year in, year out, Marshawn Lattimore, all these guys every single year. And they're like, how are they keeping these guys? They were pushing money back, void years, year after year after year after year. And the cap is not a myth. You have to pay the piper, and they are in the middle of doing that right now. They have $50 million of their cap towards players that aren't on their roster. It's dead money. Those players don't play for them anymore, and they are paying those players $50 million. So that's almost 20% of their total cap space there. So that really sucks. There's a couple teams, the Browns, Broncos, and Dolphins, all over $30 million. And then you start getting into the 20s. There's a couple teams 20s, and then most of the teams are under 15 to 10 million, with the majority of the teams 13, 14, 15, 16 teams under $10 million dead cap. Normally you don't want a lot of dead cap on your team. Philly is one of the teams with high dead cap. They're at almost 30 million.
It looks like the good news for the Saints, though, is that this year is going to be pretty bad, but it looks like it will get a little better.
Freeze up next year.
Yeah, it will freeze up for the 2026 season. You'll have a little bit of money where you can sign a couple players.
Yeah. They'll come back. They just need a couple strong draft classes. They have some money starting next year. They need to get the quarterback position ironed out. They need to get the head coach. Kellen Moore could be great, could be terrible. We'll see. But they need to dial that in. So lots of potential for the Saints. Any other teams you guys want to touch on for 2025 free agency and the free agency for dummies? The Browns.
Myles Garrett. Did we talk about Myles Garrett?
Yeah. I mean, so Myles Garrett is due. He's a $20 million cap hit. So I don't know exactly how it works with the trade. So I would assume if they're trading him, if they want full pick value, they'll have to eat the money. But if they want to alleviate some of that cap hit, then the other team would take the money, and you might get Myles Garrett for a second and a fourth round pick instead of a first and a third.
I mean, I'd take Myles Garrett no matter what. I don't think anything is going to be super outlandish to pay for somebody like Myles Garrett.
He is definitely, he's 29.
Best edge in the league at the moment.
He's got a solid probably 4 or 5 years left in him. His current contract, he is $19 million this year, $20 million next year. He has 4 void years though, which are huge. Huge in a bad way.
What's screwing the Browns is the Deshaun Watson signing.
Well, and they've alleged that he's going to rework that.
You can hope. You better hope so if you're a Browns fan.
I don't know. This will be Garrett's age 30 season this year. So you probably only getting 4 or 5 years at best. He's going to need to go to a team that is a competitor right now and has the cap room to pay him.
I'd sign him for a 5-year deal for sure.
Well, I mean, when you're thinking about teams like that, you definitely say the Commanders. Why would you not say them? Because out of all the teams at the top right now, you got like the Patriots, the Raiders, the Commanders, the Cardinals, the Chargers. Maybe the Chargers. The Chargers wouldn't be an awful fit for them either. But I don't see Bears. Maybe Vikings.
We don't have the draft capital. We have 4 picks. We don't have the draft capital.
Yeah, so I definitely see Commanders, Chargers being 2 really good places for Myles Garrett to land.
So you trade the 29th overall pick, and then their third. Do they have a 3rd round comp? Do they have a 4th round comp? No, they don't. So you trade the 29th overall pick, and then trying to find their next pick. They don't have a 3rd or a 4th round pick. See, that becomes the issue. You'd have to trade a first this year, a 2nd next year, and then pay him a bunch of money for a 30-year-old D end.
Yep.
That's a lot.
30 years old is not that.
At D end though, it is. I mean, you're getting maybe. I mean, the elite level guys play till 35, and that is all-time greats that had extreme longevity. Most guys are like running backs. It's just such a hard position to play they start falling off around 30. They don't last much longer than 30, 32 years old, just because it beats your body up so hard. You start missing games. You can't play. And I fully admit he is not over his hill yet. He probably has 3 or 4 years left. He's an elite talent. And he's a fucking baller. But just paying on paper, when you say, yeah, pay a 30-year-old D end top of the market money and give up 2 high value picks. If I'm a GM, I go, ooh. That's a make it or break it trade. Like, if you don't win a Super Bowl making that trade, you might lose your job for something like that. Or at least make a Super Bowl or make a competitive run. You know, if you're Dan Quinn and you don't make the NFC Championship game, you have one more chance. Get it right this time or you're out. Which is harsh, but the NFL's harsh. Any other teams we want to talk about real quick? Any other teams? Any other teams you guys got questions about? We're going to touch on all the teams throughout the offseason. We got loads more content coming. So I hope you enjoyed the little mini Free Agency for Dummies episode. Make sure to like the channel, subscribe, and we'll see y'all next time. Peace.